And now we get to round 20. We'll get to the tips now. And we start on Friday night with one of the oldest rivalries in football, Collingwood versus Carlton. What a game this will be. Carlton are in some very good form, beating some lowly opponents. I'll just say that right now. But they're coming up against the best team in the comp in Collingwood. And I think right now this is where the streak ends, and it's going to end miserably. I think Collingwood come to this game and beat Carlton pretty convincingly. I think that Carlton are going to face a real reality check on where they are, and I think Collingwood are the ones to deal it out. This is going to be at least, the thing is, Collingwood don't tend to flog teams very much. They do have a good percentage, but it just doesn't feel like Collingwood really come out and burn teams very often. So I'm going to be picking Collingwood by about 30 points here. I think they'll win this one pretty convincingly, and I think Carlton are going to get a real reality check going into the last 4 weeks of the season. After that, we get to Saturday afternoon, Geelong versus Fremantle. And this is down at Cardinia Park, which automatically gives you Geelong the win here. I'm sorry, but Geelong down there win every day against a team like Fremantle, who are in pretty poor form at the moment. Fremantle are very disappointing. They are sitting 15th spot, just away from a team they're away from Hawthorn, that is a team that was talked about tanking at the start of the season. They're away from North Melbourne, who have been the worst team in the competition for the last 2 or 3 years. And then they've got West Coast, who are playing like a VFL side. So Fremantle aren't exactly sitting in great company there, and they're playing some woeful footy, and it's not going to help much more because Geelong at home will crush Fremantle. And this is the thing. I mean, everyone will be talking about how Geelong is such a great club, this time next week when they beat Fremantle by 80 points or whatever, or 50 points. But it's not convincing anyone. It's not convincing me anyway. They won't make the top 4, and they have not been able to compete against a top 4 side, really, this season. They do have Port Adelaide in a couple of weeks, which will be very interesting to see how they go. But they're not good. I don't think they're really giving me much to talk about at the moment. Anyway, next up we get to the Bulldogs versus Giants, and this is a massive game. I think this is one of the games of the round. If anything, it's second game of the round, really, behind the showdown to me. This is going to be a big game. And it's a little bit disappointing that it's down in Ballarat. I mean, good on the Ballarat people to get this game. But this game is finals. This is a finals game, really. If the Bulldogs lose this one, I think that they could potentially fall out of the top 8. Just on the fact that they've got a pretty low percentage, and there are teams biting at the bit just to get to that position. They've got teams like the Crows, Sydney, Essendon, Crows, Sydney, and Carlton, all with high percentage over the Bulldogs, and they've also got teams like Essendon and Richmond, even though they've only won one of their past 5 games, they do have a very good run home. I think they've got West Coast and North Melbourne still to go, so they're automatic wins. And Richmond are in pretty good form at the moment, and they have a pretty good run home. So the Bulldogs really need to win this game. But the Giants, I think they need a little bit more, and they're playing some good footy. I don't know if they can win this one, though, because it's down in Ballarat. This is such a hard game for them, because if this was at Marvel, I'd actually be tipping the Giants. But because it's at Ballarat, it's so weird conditions. It's very cold. It's very windy. I'm going to give it to the Bulldogs. But nonetheless, I'd really love to see a great game out of these two. And it's kind of a bad time slot as well. But nonetheless, big game for both those clubs. After that, we get to the Q Clash, Gold Coast versus Brisbane. I'd just like to see a contest from the Gold Coast in the Q Clash. I think we got a little bit more of a contest last time, but I don't know. The Gold Coast just never seem to compete against the Brisbane Lions. I know they're in very different stages of their development, but this isn't a rivalry until they compete, the Gold Coast. And at this stage, the Gold Coast kind of know now that their finals hopes are gone. So I think Brisbane will be looking to win this one pretty convincingly and be pushing for that top 2 spot, which now they're only 1 game behind Port Adelaide. So really big for both those Brisbane to get this win and really push towards that top 2. After that, we get to Essendon versus Sydney. This is a big game as well, because both these teams, whoever loses it, I think could be it won't be really out of the race if Essendon lose. But if Essendon do lose, they're going to find it very difficult to make that 8th spot, because if Sydney win, they've got 2 points on them, and they have already, not that the percentage really matters because of those 2 points, but they do have good percentage as well, the Swans. So Essendon, this is almost a must-win game for them, because they're going to be able to beat North Melbourne and West Coast. But if they want to hold that final 8 spot with the teams like the Giants and Geelong and Carlton, those 3 teams that are sitting 7th, 8th and 9th, they are playing some good footy at the moment. Essendon are not. So Essendon, this is a must-win game for them at home, and I am going to tip them. However, Sydney have found a little bit of form in the past few weeks, and if Sydney can hit some rich vein of form towards the end of the season, I mean, who knows? I still don't think the Swans can make the finals. I think that they have made their run a little bit too late. However, they have won 3 of their past 5 games, and one of them was a draw, and the one that they didn't win was also a draw against Geelong, which they really should have won. So really, they've been the better team in 4 of their past 5 games. So I give the Swans a bit of a chance here, but I just think that the Bombers at home, they've been in a bit of bad form at the moment. I just think they can just get over the line against the Swans. After that, we get to the match of the round, and it's again Port Adelaide up against the Crows at Adelaide Oval. Obviously, the showdown. This needs to be talked about a lot more because this game is going to be massive. It may read on the ladder 13th against 2nd, but this game is a lot more than that. I come from Adelaide, of course, and this is big. If the Crows win this game, they actually give themselves a real chance towards pushing towards finals. But if Port Adelaide win it, this is why it's so big, because if Port Adelaide win it, this will be a lot more on their hands because they knocked their rivals out of the finals race, and that would be big for them. But if the Crows can win, not only do they get themselves back in the finals race, but it potentially knocks their rivals out of the top 2 spot. So that's why this game is so massive for both clubs. I'm going to pick Port Adelaide. They've lost their last 2 games. I'll give them a mulligan against Carlton. And look, they were very good against Collingwood, just got pipped at the post. I think against a lesser side like the Crows, I think Port Adelaide can win. However, in saying that, Crows match up a lot better on Port Adelaide than a lot of clubs do, because Port Adelaide do struggle against the big forwards of the competition because they got quite a short forward line. So having players like Phil Thorpe, who had a massive game in the showdown last time, Taylor Walker is in pretty good form, and Darcy Fogarty as well, the Crows do match up very well, but I just give Port Adelaide a little bit more of a win here just because I think they're a better side, which, I mean, on paper it kind of suggests that, being second on the ladder. And then we get to Sunday, Hawthorn versus St Kilda. Boy, is this a big game for the Saints. They are playing some woeful footy at the moment. And I've been swapping and changing this tip for a couple of minutes. And to be honest, I'm actually going to switch it again. St Kilda are in such bad form. Can I edit this? Yeah, I can edit this. Okay. I'm going to edit this quickly and pick Hawthorn over the Saints, because I just think this is it for the Saints. They're starting to fall into... They're free falling out of the 8 right now. And they were very lucky to get that win against North Melbourne late. But they're not playing good footy at all. They don't have Max King up there, obviously. He's injured. They're not playing anywhere near to the standard finals that they need. They've won 2 of their past 5 games, and their wins have been against West Coast and North Melbourne. So they may be coming up against the 16th team, which is Hawthorn. However, I think Hawthorn are a step above those 2, and I think Hawthorn will get them. And they did actually get them, I think about 6 or 7 weeks ago, Hawthorn beat them. So I think Hawthorn will win this game. And I think St Kilda will be free falling out of the 8 and potentially falling under... They could fall... in the next couple of weeks, if St Kilda don't start to win a few games, they could fall right down to 14th on the ladder. Now, I don't think they'll fall that far down, but falling down from basically in the top 5, a couple of weeks ago, when they beat the Swans, to potentially falling all the way down to 14th on the ladder would be an absolute embarrassment for them. So I don't think they'll fall that far down, but they potentially could if they play the way they are in the past fortnight. Next, we get to Sunday afternoon, Richmond versus Melbourne. Big game for both clubs as well. Richmond kind of have to win this game to keep themselves in touch with the 8. But Melbourne, they're not in the best of form at the moment. They have won their past 3 games. But before then, they weren't playing good footy at all. They were able to beat St Kilda a couple of weeks ago as well. And then they were able to beat the Crows just. But because Melbourne, I just think, are just a better team, I'm going to be picking Melbourne. However, I wouldn't be too surprised if Richmond were able to get them here. And if Richmond do, they get themselves right back in the finals race. Like I said, though, their problem is their percentage, and having 2 teams like Carlton and Geelong pushing for those final spots with draws, their percentage is actually going to matter a little bit. However, I think that if Richmond can get this game, that does give them a real chance with the final, end of the season push. And then finally we get to the game of... No, sorry guys, I've been all wrong this whole time. The game of the round is the final game of the round 20, which is West Coast versus North Melbourne. And if you're a North Melbourne fan, you are licking your lips, because this is basically your only chance to get a win for the rest of the season. You've won 2 games this season. You've been pretty poor, let's be real. You haven't really done much better than you did last year. It's only because there's a team called West Coast Eagles down in bloody WA that are playing so bad that you were going to get a win here. North Melbourne will win this game. It may be in Perth. I don't care. They win this game, and they win this one by a couple of... They'll win this one by 3 or 4 goals. I think Nick Larkey will have a day out. I don't know if Tom Barrass will be in this team next week. And that's another... No, we're not going to go into that. I was going to talk about how Charlie Kerner didn't get 10 goals against a forward. But whatever. Doesn't matter. Nick Larkey will have a day out. North Melbourne will get a win here. And they'll push another win away from West Coast. And West Coast season goes from bad to worse. They'll lose this one pretty convincingly. And I don't think they should be... I know it's a big statement and maybe it's a little bit clickbaity, but... I think they should just take West Coast out of the competition for the rest of the season and give every single team in the comp a 60-point win, like 120 to 60, so they get double the percentage, and they get a win. I think they should just do that, honestly. I think that, they couldn't, but, because it would just give an advantage. Well, it wouldn't exactly give them an advantage because of having a bye, essentially. But at this point, West Coast are not fair to the competition. They are not. It's unfair for them to be able to be in the competition and just have teams have them walloped every single week. It's pathetic.